Did you know that there was another quadruple homicide that occurred in Idaho? And this happened in June of 2023. And the charges that the defendant were facing were the same as Bryan Kohberger. 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary. If you did follow this case with me, then you'll remember we did talk about this when it happened. This is the defendant Majorjon Kaylor, who wiped out an entire family who lived downstairs because he snapped one day because he was so mad with one of the teenage boys living in that apartment. So if you don't know about this case, don't worry. We're going to go over it now. I'm going to recap it for you. The reason I'm talking about it now again is because the defendant, Majorjon Kaylor, has just decided to plead guilty to all the charges that he was facing. So he was going to go to trial in 2024 sometime. The date I don't think had been set yet. I hadn't seen an exact date, but now we have a date for his sentencing, which will be March 25th of 2024. So if they stream it or show it or anything like that, maybe we'll be there together. The thing is that his charges have now been changed to 4 counts of second-degree murder, and there's no more burglary charge, and this is because of this plea deal. So he's probably still going to be spending his life in prison, but he was actually facing the death penalty, much like Bryan Kohberger. And you know how when it comes to Kohberger, people debate a lot about who was the main target and things like that. In this case, there's no mystery who the main target was. The main target, an 18-year-old boy, was shot multiple times, whereas the other 3 family members were each shot once, execution style. So let's go over the details of this case, what happened here, and now you'll be all caught up and ready for the sentencing that takes place in March of 2024. Please note that this content is for adults only. Viewer discretion advised. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe, like, and share.
What is your plea to count 1, murder in the second degree?
Guilty.
It's a word Kaylor would say 3 more times as the judge read off the other 3 counts and the names of the other 3 victims.
Guilty. Guilty. Guilty.
Court documents show Kaylor told police he snapped that day and was protecting his family. That decision is now keeping him locked up and away from his wife and children.
So it was Father's Day in this little town called Kellogg, Idaho, and it's in Shoshone County, which is a small mining community. And there's this little 2-story apartment building. Picture that. I'll show you pictures as well. On the top floor, Majorjon, his wife, 2 daughters, and 1 son lived there. And they were fairly happy there, okay? Downstairs, a family had just moved in. And that was 65-year-old Kenneth Guardipee, his daughter, 41-year-old Kenna Guardipee, and her 2 sons, Devin Smith and Aiken Smith. Devin was the 18-year-old. So what exactly was the problem? What led to this? Because Father's Day actually started off really well in the morning. His wife had written him this beautiful message saying that he was the exact father that she could wish that her children had, and she loves him so much and the children love him and they just can't wait for him to get back from work. So how does one go from a morning like that, which sounds like a pancake breakfast and Father's Day and all kinds of excitement, and he went off to work, to then suddenly ending up in a quadruple homicide, a 911 call being made and him just admitting it right then and there. He said, yep, I killed my neighbors. And he said he just snapped. So what led to that? To understand that, we have to go 3 weeks back. So 3 weeks before the homicide occurred, this occurred on June 18th of 2023, okay, Father's Day. 3 weeks before, Devin Smith, the 18-year-old, had just graduated from high school. And the community was talking a little bit because Majorjon's wife was posting on Facebook complaints about this 18-year-old Devin Smith who just graduated high school and saying, like, what the hell is going on here? Do people know that he's a problem? These people have just moved in downstairs. And the problem they were having was that Devin Smith would be looking out the window from that downstairs apartment at their daughters playing outside. And he wouldn't just be looking. They'd be jumping on the trampoline and the sprinklers were going. Yeah, he would get naked and then he'd be touching himself. And so, of course, one can understand how any parents would get really upset with that. But the thing is, you can't murder people, no matter how upset you get, no matter how frustrated. And you know what? To think that they had complained to the police, they'd been talking a little bit on Facebook, they'd shared pictures between each other, being like, psh, like this guy, like how do we deal with this guy? All of that was happening, but it escalated so quickly. From 0 to suddenly within 2 weeks. I mean, that family had just moved in for 2 weeks, okay? Let's just remind you of that. From them moving in to 2 weeks later, shooting all 4 people because they just weren't listening. Majorjon felt like he wasn't getting through to the grandpa and the mom because he was trying to tell them, this is a problem. This 18-year-old, and to Kenna, your son, is literally getting naked and staring at my kids and touching himself. That's inappropriate. And you see, he got so angry because they downplayed it. They were like, oh, don't worry, he's got a learning disability and it's like a known problem and it's okay, everything's fine. And he's like, everything's not fine. Everything's not fine. You can't let him do that. So you can understand why his anger built up, but still, you can't just snap and kill 4 people. So what happened was, 3 weeks before, Devin graduated high school. 2 weeks before, people at the high school were responding to Majorjon's wife's Facebook post saying, yeah, they know that this guy is a bit of a problem because already from when they moved in, he was a problem to them. And then 1 week before, after Majorjon and his wife had actually filed a report with the police, and that was in the process, the administration process. Okay, nothing had been done yet, but the police said they would file a charge of indecent exposure. Anyway, so a week before, Majorjon's wife had posted to Facebook that they cannot stand how smug Devin Smith really was. They passed him in a store and he was just smirking at them, and his mom and grandpa, they were just looking down at the ground, all embarrassed and not saying a word about it. And they just like, this sicko did this and this, and my kids were playing outside and he was touching himself. And, you know, and then again, people were replying to those posts on Facebook saying he is a sicko and he's a predator and nothing will change. And people knew him throughout his school years and other girls were complaining about him. And really the community didn't know what to do. So maybe in that moment, Majorjon felt all protective because that's what he's going with. He said he was protecting his family, but I mean, very short-sighted because now he'll never see his family again, likely. He's probably going to spend the rest of his life in prison. He was going to face the death penalty, just like Koberger, but now that he's pleaded guilty, he's probably going to be facing life in prison. So we will see what happens on March 25th of 2024, but to think he was, you know, went into dad mode, was protecting his family, and the thing is, in his background, I believe there's a couple of charges of battery or something like that. So I don't know, he's got a short temper is what I gathered from reading up on him. So again, we get to June 18th of 2023 and around 6 p.m. Majorjon is coming home from work. And then by 7:20, 911 was called. They were there within 4 minutes and Majorjon was standing there and said that he just shot his neighbors. 4 people found deceased. Kenneth was found outside, so was Kenna, and then the 16-year-old was found inside the house, and even deeper into the house was the 18-year-old who had been shot multiple times, and it seemed like he had been made to kneel, and then he was shot. So Majorjon was arrested right then and there because it's not like he was denying it either. And he's been in jail ever since, awaiting trial, and has since decided he's just gonna plead guilty, which I can respect that actually, because so many, I know it's standard, of course, for these criminals to plead not guilty, but sometimes we wonder, will any of them ever just own up to what they did? Will they ever just plead guilty? So Majorjon says he's pleading guilty, he has already done this now, and he said he just snapped that day. He was trying to protect his daughters, and, you know, his temper got the best of him, and so 4 people ended up dead. So let's have a look at the police report to go through the chronological events and details of what exactly happened on that day.
Everyone that knows him knows he's a good person. This is not what he wanted. This wasn't, this is not what anyone wanted. The police, our landlord, the one who was doing it, the person who was doing it, to his family, all made us feel like we weren't safe and nothing was going to be done about it. And the Devin, adult, 18, said he was not going to be getting in trouble, that the cops believed him and were on his side. Why didn't Kellogg High School do something? Why didn't Kellogg Police do something? Why wasn't it concerning when I called when all this other stuff had happened and other people had tried to get restraining orders and tried to get something done about him? Why didn't the high school do anything about this kid? But they made that big of a fuss about that kid not graduating. They wouldn't let him graduate, but they let this kid when there's been nothing but problems. And I've been told they just wanted to get him out of there. Someone like that should not be out into society. He should have gotten help. He should have been in an institution. He should have not ever been around our kids. My husband is he's worked so hard so I can be a mom and take care of our kids. And he worked so hard, and we've been together since we were 14. He's always just wanted to be a dad and a provider and a good person, and that's what he's been.
Okay, so this is County of Shoshone. I, Detective Justin Klitsch, being virtually sworn, state that I'm the same person whose name is subscribed to the attached criminal citation felony, and that my answers to the questions asked by the court with reference to said arrest are as follows. On June 18th of 2023 at approximately 19:20 hours, a 911 call came into Shoshone County Dispatch alleging shots fired in the area of 515 Brown Avenue, Kellogg, Shoshone County, Idaho. Shortly thereafter, a second call was received by dispatch that an individual had executed his neighbors. Sergeant Jared Belaski of the Shoshone County Sheriff's Office arrived on scene at 19:24 hours and observed two individuals later identified as Majorjon Kaylor and possibly his wife, because they redacted that, in the street at the location of 515 Brown Avenue in Kellogg, Idaho. Kaylor told Sergeant Belaski that he had shot and killed his neighbors. At approximately 19:57 hours, Idaho State Police Detective Justin Klitsch was advised and requested to respond to the 515 Brown Avenue, Kellogg, Shoshone County, Idaho location. I would arrive at the scene of the homicide at approximately 21:35 hours and assume investigatory duties at that location. During my communications en route to the scene and after initial investigative activities once on location, I would come to learn the following. The four deceased victims were Kenneth R. Guardipee, he was 65 years old, as I told you guys. Kenna L. Guardipee, his daughter, 41 years old. Devin R. Smith, 18. And then they redacted it here, but we since learned that was a minor victim here, 16-year-old Aiken Smith. The suspect, Majorjon Kaylor, was detained prior to my arrival. A few days prior to the incident, the suspect's wife, Kaylee M. Kaylor, had made a post on Facebook describing a recent incident between her daughters, and Devin Smith. In her post, Kaylee Kaylor indicated that Devin Smith had exposed himself, was shaking his penis, and masturbating through a window in front of her and her juvenile daughters. The address of 515 West Brown Avenue, Kellogg, Idaho, is a 2-story residential apartment building with 2 apartments designated as Apartment A and Apartment B. The apartment could be described as a tan or light yellowish color with a brownish colored trim. Apartment A is ground level and known to be occupied by the 4 listed victims. That's the bottom one that I told you guys about. And Apartment B is a 2nd-story apartment known to be occupied by Kaylor, his wife, and their 3 children. And now they just go over the details of the cars and the garage and all of that, okay? So if you want to pause and read, you can. We've gone over this before. It's in the live stream that I've linked in the description box for you. So Devin Smith and his younger brother were found deceased inside Apartment A, and Kenna Guardipee and Kenneth Guardipee were found deceased outside near the rear entrance doorway stairway to Apartment A. The location and situation of the bodies are as follows. Kenna Guardipee was lying face up next to the rear exterior concrete steps to Apartment A with an apparent gunshot wound to her right temple, which appeared to have been fired within close proximity, which is now why I said execution style. Kenneth Guardipee was found partially on the concrete steps and partially on a garden area next to the steps. He also had an apparent gunshot wound to the right temple area, which appeared to have been fired in close proximity based on the entry wound. There were multiple .45 caliber casings in the immediate vicinity of both Kenneth Guardipee and Kenna Guardipee. On the interior of Apartment A, the 16-year-old was found lying face down on his stomach between the kitchen and the living room with a gunshot wound to the right temple area. that appeared to be fired in close proximity based on the entry wound. There was one .45 caliber firearm casing found near the 16-year-old's body. Devin Smith was found in the southeastern bedroom of apartment A, behind the bedroom door, on his knees, face down, also with multiple gunshot wounds to the head. There were multiple .45 caliber firearm casings found in the bedroom where Devin Smith was located. That's how you know he was the main target. I mean, he was, just if you understand the story, of course, but to think that even in the commission of this crime, Majorjon shot each person once and then shot Devin so many times, sure, the rage. And also to think of eliminating all these people before he got to Devin, sure, that's pretty scary stuff. So once on the scene, I conducted a brief interview with Kaylor. I read Kaylor his Miranda rights. During the course of our interview, Kaylor stated he was suspicious and concerned for his children. As one of the victims, Devin Smith had been acting suspicious, watching his kids, and conducted acts of nudity in front of his children. Kaylor referred to Devin Smith as a pedophile. Kaylor had confronted Devin Smith's mother, Kenna Guardipee, and his grandfather, Kenneth Guardipee, and was upset that they didn't seem to take his concerns with Devin Smith seriously. Kaylor said he snapped, lost it, and did something about it. Kaylor then indicated he wanted an attorney, and the interview was concluded. I then interviewed Kaylee Kaylor. In summary, Kaylee Kaylor indicated the 4 victims had recently moved into the apartment, and she had observed Devin Smith fully nude, holding his penis, masturbating in front of her and her juvenile daughter through a window on the previous Tuesday, June 13th of 2023. The police had responded and investigated the incident. On June 18th, 2023, at approximately 1800 hours, an argument occurred between Kaylee Kaylor, probably Majorjon Kaylor then, and Kenna Guardipee, which was later confirmed by video surveillance obtained from an adjacent business building, which captured pertinent portions of this incident. Because I was wondering, did anyone have ring cam? Did anyone catch this on their camera? So the arguments were captured. I don't know what else. Then they say Kaylee Kaylor indicated Kaylor had a holstered gun on his person, which he put on after arriving home from work and before going outside with the family to water plants in the backyard area that is shared by both apartments, which is why you can see why he's initially charged with first-degree murder, because that was a pretty premeditated action. You know, to think, okay, I'm back from work now. Now let's go water the plants. Let's all go and play in the backyard. You know, just waiting for something to happen. Kaylee Kaylor indicated that she'd had possession of the handgun, which she described as black and heavy, prior to Kaylor getting home from work. She indicated that Kaylor and herself were standing in the backyard outside near the back door of apartment A, arguing with Kenna Guardipee about the inappropriate behavior of her son, Devin Smith, and their lack of taking it seriously. She appeared concerned that there would be no consequences for Devin Smith's actions, either by law enforcement or Devin Smith's family. So this guy kind of went into like a vigilante mode, but you can't do that. Kaylee Kaylor indicated that she was standing near Kaylor and heard gunshots, observed Kenna Guardipee fall to the ground, then saw Kenneth Guardipee fall to the ground. Kaylee Kaylor then ran upstairs to her apartment and heard additional gunshots. She did not remember seeing Kaylor holding the handgun. Kaylee Kaylor indicated both Kenneth Guardipee and Kenna Guardipee were unarmed. Kaylee Kaylor further noted that Kaylor said he did what he had to do and to tell their kids that he protected them. Kaylee Kaylor said after the shooting, Kaylor handed her his phone, keys, and wallet and asked her to hold on to them. She said that she placed both her and Kaylor's phones down inside their apartment. Kaylee Kaylor observed Kaylor put a belt, holster, and gun in their black Dodge truck parked outside. She said she overheard Kaylor talking on the phone saying that he'd killed 4 people. I asked Kaylee Kaylor if her and Kaylor had talked to each other about what they were going to do if an incident were to happen again, and she indicated Kaylor had already told the police that if something like this, referring to the indecent exposure, that he, Kaylor, was going to take care of it, and which she indicated she interpreted as more like beating someone up. Kaylee Kaylor said that she and Kaylor had shared an iconic picture of the guy on the telephone who shoots the molester who essayed his daughter. I would later come to learn that Kaylee Kaylor was referring to Gary Plausch, who on camera or television shot and killed a man who was suspected of kidnapping, essaying, and molesting his daughter. It was later discovered Kaylee Kaylor had shared a black and white meme type image which had the words "How to Catch a Predator" and a drawing of a man at a telephone booth shooting another man in the head. On scene, I observed a belt, holster, and semi-automatic pistol in the front driver's seat of the black Dodge, which could be seen through the window of the Dodge. I later reviewed the above-referenced surveillance video from a nearby business that corroborated that an altercation or argument had taken place at the location, which can be heard in the audio portion of the video. The audio also reveals what sounds like multiple gunshots being fired. Prior to the shooting, the audio portion of the video reveals over 5 minutes of what sounded like a loud argument or confrontation between Kaylee Kaylor, and someone else, who, based on Kaylee Kaylor's statement, I suspect to be Kenna Guardipee. From the statement of events relayed from Kaylee Kaylor, corroborated by circumstantial evidence, and Kaylor's own comments, it would appear that after making 2 similarly placed shots in the right temple area of both Kenna Guardipee and Kenneth Guardipee, Kaylor entered the residence of apartment A where he shot and killed both the 16-year-old and Devin Smith. Based on the evidence collected at the scene and the locations of the victims' bodies, it further appeared that the 16-year-old was shot point blank or near point blank range while lying on the floor in a prone position. All of the victims appeared to only have been shot once, with the exception of Devin Smith, who had been shot multiple times from close range. The audio from the video surveillance appears to show multiple seconds pass between the time that Kenneth Guardipee and Kenna Guardipee were likely killed, when the 16-year-old was likely killed, and also between the time that the 16-year-old was likely killed and Devin Smith was likely killed. So he was definitely trying to get to Devin and make sure that Devin understood that he was not going to pay the price for what he had done, which of course was a completely disproportionate reaction. As angry as one can be at the situation, it's a disproportionate reaction to it. As part of the execution of the search warrant, I conducted a search of the black 2022 Dodge Ram and removed a .45 caliber high-point semi-automatic pistol, which was holstered and secured with a snap and attached to a belt. Upon examination of this firearm, it was discovered that the pistol had 1 bullet in the chamber and 5 bullets in the magazine. There were what appeared to be both blood and tissue on the pistol, consistent with a close-range shot or shots. I also located an empty magazine under the seat of the truck. Based upon the evidence collected, specifically the magazines and the magazine capacities and empty shell casings found at the crime scene, Kaylor would have likely had to deliberately change magazines and or reload magazines in order to continue shooting and discharge the number of rounds which were identified to have been fired during the homicide. The investigation is ongoing. At this time, there appears to be sufficient evidence to support criminal charges for murder in the first degree for each of the 4 victims and burglary. On June 19th, 2023, Kaylor was booked into the Shoshone County Jail for 4 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of burglary. And so the burglary charges have now been dropped. The charges have changed to second-degree murder, and he's taken a plea deal. He's pleaded guilty, and so he's going to be sentenced on March 25th of 2024. And as I say, he was facing the death penalty and likely now will not, but could be facing, I think they said it's for a second-degree murder charge is 10 years to life for each victim. And then there's also financial, there's fines as well at play. So we'll see what happens on that date. I just wanted to remind you of this case, in case you've never heard of it. Maybe you didn't know there's another quadruple homicide that occurred in Idaho. And let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you want to check out the live stream where I showed you video clips, and I think we looked at the map and video clips and documents and just more, it was a bit of a longer stream. I wanted to make this nice and concise so that you get the full story in minimal time. Then go check that out and leave a comment over there as well. And then I will see you in the next one. Stay safe, and please remember that no matter how angry someone makes you, you can't kill them. Okay? One would think we don't have to say that, but sometimes we might have to remind someone. Don't do that. You're going to take lives. You're going to ruin your own life, your family's life. And there's so many victims beyond that, because imagine all of the victim's family and friends. Imagine now the children of Majorjon that must be so confused and devastated. Like, wait, he was trying to protect us from this guy who was doing this stuff, but now we'll never see him again. Oh, just terrible, absolutely devastating, and a very impulsive crime. But sure, to think of that, think of how impulsive this quadruple homicide was. I mean, one could then wonder if Brian Koberger, the suspect, if he did it, right? Whoever did that crime, because of course he's innocent until proven guilty, was that impulsive? Did something happen that day or leading up to it that made him snap? Who knows? Who knows? But these crimes, I just can't believe that there were 2 quadruple homicides that occurred in Idaho within a 7-month period. And I'm not too sure of how many people actually heard about this case. If you'd never heard about it, let me know in the comments below as well. Okay, everyone, I will see you in the next one. Stay safe.